Hi, so today we're on the third match for Bryan Danielson in his AEW run, where we're going through every single match of his run. Now, this match is a lead on from the previous two matches, where it's the Super Elite, which is the regular Elite, Kenny, the Bucks, with Adam Cole, versus Christian Cage, Jurassic Express, which is Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, and Bryan. This one's been built up since, Bryan saved Christian and Jurassic Express at All Out in his debut appearance, or even his debut match, and they returned the favour in the last match we covered against Nick Jackson on Rampage. Now, going into this match, I was quite surprised that it literally opened the match, in the sense of there was no entrances, at least from what I watched, and I watched it on Triller. So there was no entrances, it just cut to the introductions rather than, the entrances, which is fine. Straight away, the main point I'll make about this match is, it's not really a Bryan-centered match, and that kind of feels a bit off to me, especially because I feel like for this feud, it was built around Bryan. Yeah, the Jurassic Express and Christian Cage were originally there, but I feel like Bryan's such the key factor, especially with that Kenny match, that stole the show. So this one really felt like, honestly, even Christian took a major backseat. It really felt like just Jurassic Express versus the Bucks, mainly. And you kind of expect that from the Bucks to take up most of the ring time. But then Adam Cole and Kenny, when Kenny was in, and they have a little sequence with Kenny and Bryan, and that's probably the highlight of the match. The match is chaotic. That first 10 minutes is pure, utter chaos. The match is about 20 minutes long, but the first 10 minutes are pure, utter chaos. And it's great. It's hard to follow a bit. Like, they kind of just blow away with who's legal and who's not. But it's chaotic. The crowd are hot for Luchasaurus straight away, as they always are. But really hot for Luchasaurus. When Luchasaurus gets it gets a bigger pop than Bryan. But it was crazy. Luchasaurus delivering some great head kicks. Jungle Boy. I've always been a fan of Jack Perry. I think his charisma doesn't really exist. But I actually like him as a wrestler in ring. I think he's technically superb. So in this match, it kind of gets, a lot of focus, which I'm happy about. Christian gets, 2 minutes, not even that. And then Bryan's basically saving a lot of the time. The Bucks, everyone in the Elite just got this arrogant vibe, as you expect. There's one point where I was watching the match, and there's this guy in a green shirt, not green shirt guy, but he was just, right next to the ring. I was like, that fan's ridiculously close, and I forgot Marco Stunt existed. So that's Marco Stunt. I'm Michael Masawa, or whatever his name is. He was just causing antics outside the ring, and then Bryan had to beat him off. Whoa! And then when Bryan got tagged into the ring, that's when I don't want to say mainly paid attention, because the match was fine before that, but it felt like it needed to calm down, recenter, reorganize, then go for it. And when Bryan got in, it was Bryan and Kenny, and they'd done a standoff for a second, and the crowd goes hot, because obviously it was a hot sequence before that, and then they start going wild. Bryan gets the better of Kenny with the strikes, goes up to the top rope and does a diving headbutt. That was sick. Goes for the cattle mutilation, basic joint manipulation from Bryan, but Kenny gets broken up by the Bucks. And then when the Bucks come in, they start teaming up on Bryan, hitting a double super kick on Bryan, basically taking Bryan out for the rest of the match at this point. It goes back to Jungle Boy taking a lot of just the basic punishment in this match, to be honest. He looks great, and there's a lot of flips. There's a point where Bryan does a dive after Kenny does a dive when they're outside the ring, then Bryan, or inverse way. And then, spot-wise, the match is kind of weird. It's a lot went on, a bit too much to kind of go, okay, this and that, like I normally do. But a lot really went down. The main things I can recall is the dive out the ring, the flying headbutt from Bryan. He does a Hurricane Rana. That was sick. And then the Bucks, this is the finish actually, they get Jack Perry, and he's on his knees, and they get the four-way. So all four members of the Elite hit the four-way BTE trigger, and Adam Cole gets the pin. That's how the match ends. But even then, you have the simple Adam Cole getting the chin lock and then the kisses by the Bucks. It was, from a Bryan perspective, it really didn't have a lot of Bryan moments, and that's kind of not disappointing, but I just kind of, well, no, it is disappointing. I go into this match expecting a bit more even spread, and I feel like AEW's got better with this, where some matches will have this chaotic feel. A lot of times on Collision, these 8-man tags, and you forget who it is, and it's kind of hard to break down and talk about, besides if something insane happens. But with this one, it felt really pre-developed. Like, you know, it feels like watching this and then watching a modern day, like, 8-man tag on AEW, you can tell how much they've developed it, and I kind of appreciated that going into about watching this one. Not that it was bad, it definitely wasn't bad. It was just a bit too much at the start, and when it got to the end, it feels like, okay, now we're just trying to get people in. Like, Adam Cole looked great in this match. I was happy that Cole was getting a lot of abuse from Shivani, which was still surprising. But I love Adam Cole. It was great to see Adam Cole, like, in this state in AEW. I was really happy with that. I'm a big fan of Adam Cole. Kenny looked solid. He didn't look as strong as you expect because, again, Kenny didn't have that much moments. Again, it felt really like the Bucks versus Jurassic Express with the odd bit of extra. And I feel like the only guys beside those who got the most time in ring was probably Cole. And then Cole had a bit with Luchasaurus at the start. There's a point where Luchasaurus gets both Adam and Kenny and does a double, I don't know I forget the move's name, but you know, the Undertaker-esque thing. That's what Luchasaurus does. It's like, it just felt a bit weird. And I kind of wish they kind of had a lot more time to have, okay, this guy versus this guy, you know, that type of dynamic. It feels like there wasn't a lot of time with this match, and that's okay, but it just, from my perspective, I'm going through all this entire run expecting to obviously watch a lot of Bryan Danielson, which I'm not going to complain about in the slightest, but B, to kind of experience other wrestlers and the development throughout AEW and just, you know, time capsule and stuff. And it feels like this one I could have got a lot of that, and I just feel like I just watched Jack Perry just get abused by the Bucks, essentially, and then with the odd spot. Like, again, they just needed to switch it up a bit, and that's fine. Match was still fun. The match was still great, if I'm being perfectly honest. It was very fast-paced. The crowd were unbelievably hot for it. They loved it. I just feel like going into this match, I was expecting, like, an all-timer, like, and I that might be on my own fault, but when you see the Super Elite versus Bryan Danielson, Christian Cage at this point, which Christian Cage, for the time he did, he looked great. It's still wild seeing Christian Cage act that way, because I'm so used to him being a heel. And then Jurassic Express, I'm expecting, like, an insane match, and not that it wasn't insane, it just wasn't what I was expecting. That might be a bit on me, I don't really know, but it was a good match. Like I said, Adam Cole got the pin through the 4-way BT trigger. And then there's no, like, carryover after the match, really. There's not, like, okay, like, they, you know, try to shake hands, or, you know, they beat them down even when someone comes through, makes the save. No, it just kind of ends. I don't know if that's the end of that feud. If it is, that kind of ended on a sour note, but then the story wasn't really about that. It was just kind of a side pivot because Kenny's belt collector run. Well, at this point, I think he only has the AEW World title. It's the end of the belt collector run, and obviously it ends with Hangman. So it's kind of not the story, but it feels like they could have developed this a bit more. Like, it feels like they could have had something else. I don't know, something just felt missing at the end specifically. So yeah, not to really. So I feel like I've sounded quite negative on this one. I don't mean to be. I just kind of didn't enjoy this one the way I thought I would. I enjoyed it. It was a solid match. I'll never say it was a bad match. It just didn't grab me, to be perfectly honest, and that's fine. It just kind of was a bit too much sometimes, and I was like, okay, let's just calm down a bit. And I normally like chaotic matches. I love anarchy in the arenas and stuff. I love those matches. But this just didn't really connect with me. I just felt like it was a bit too unfocused. That's the exact term, unfocused. And again, that's fine. I wanted more Bryan. Simple as, I wanted more Bryan. Because wasn't the Bryan stuff we got in there, like the flying headbutts and the cattle mutilation, great. And the kicks, he lands a lot of kicks. He lands kicks to Matt Jackson, I think, at this time. And that was brutal. I really enjoyed that. Like, they make Bryan look good. It just wasn't enough for me. But then if you're having too much Bryan, they've got to win. So, who knows? What did you think of this match if you've watched it? Am I being too negative? I may be. And honestly, what's your thoughts on this whole idea that I'm doing with the Bryan matches? Do you like it or do you not? What's your opinion on it? Do you like this idea or not? And yeah, let's look forward to the next one.